The January 6th security footage has been released. Do we really know what happened now? I'm Scott Ott with Stephen Green, and sitting in for Bill Whittle, we have Zoe Rachel with us again this week. Gentlemen, Speaker of the House Kevin McCarthy has released some 40,000 hours of video footage from various security cameras to Tucker Carlson at Fox News, giving him an exclusive at first, and McCarthy says he's later going to release this to other members of the media. And Carlson has started to play some of this video on his show, lathering up Senator Chuck Schumer, who's the Senate Majority Leader, who believes that this is some sort of breach of security for the Capitol, because I think he's suggesting that some of the video may reveal to our enemies back ways to get in and out of the Capitol or something like that. But in any case, it's interesting that first of all, that it took this long for somebody to do it. The suggestion was that McCarthy had promised some people that in exchange for their support, as in his House Speaker bid, that he would release this video, and he has been good to his word, if in fact that's what he did. Zoe Rachel, I'm not sure. I don't know how I feel about giving one commentator an exclusive on the footage at first. I think I probably would have felt more comfortable even if it were a nominally conservative journalist rather than just an opinion talking head guy like us, if he had released that. But what do you think of the idea of just putting all this footage out there that shows all kinds of different angles of all kinds of different activity, and just kind of saying to the American people, okay, now you figure out what happened?
Well, I reckon they're like, well, people are trying to figure out what happened anyway. And so why don't we go ahead and, instead of leaving them to their own devices to try to piece together what happened, let's at least just go ahead and give them some actual footage to work with. So at least we can kind of like funnel in like some sort of right perspective on how that goes. I'm kind of playing devil's advocate, trying to give people the benefit of the doubt. But I mean, what are they worried about in terms of like, giving people like the inside scoop of, or is this a breach of security? The flipping security guards or the police there were giving them tours of where to go. Who's that cat? The so-called January 6th shaman, whose allegiances are seemingly
the QAnon Shaman.
Yeah, the QAnon Shaman, whatever his ambiguous role in this is. And they're walking the guy around. He's being escorted by not even actually an escort, not even like a security escort. He's like being given a tour, right? They're trying to open doors for him. Hey, what's in this room? And hey, check it out and stuff like that. And the strangest thing is, because since this guy is supposed to be a shaman or whichever, he's leading. They gave him a room where he's leading the staff in prayer. And he prefaces it by saying, Heavenly Father. It's like, what kind of shaman prays like that? So it's like, where is this guy even coming from? So all that to say, Scott, is the whole thing is engineered as it is. And I think even this is even part of the engineering. You had a lot of people on January 6th, a lot of Republican voters, if you will, who were led into it. And I've been saying this about Republican voters for years. It's like, y'all being led around by Democrats, man, in the worst way. And you're helping them do it. And January 6th was no exception. They led y'all into a trap. And if one of the things that I'm seeing so far is evidence of that with them releasing this footage, it's like, wow, man, people were led into a trap. It's a trap.
Stephen Green, Carlson, in introducing the video, Tucker said that, there were some 40,000 hours of video, but a lot of it was just empty rooms, just cameras aimed at empty rooms. So it's not like there was 40,000 hours of nonstop action. And then some of it was footage from elsewhere in the Capitol. So it wasn't really even on site of what was happening there. And then he said that they were allowed to use some computers to help speed their search through it. Obviously, anytime you're dealing with lots of hours of video and you're clipping it down to a few minutes that you're going to put on TV, choices must be made. And so it's pretty clear from the way Tucker Carlson's team edited the video that they want to give almost exactly the opposite perception of the event as they claim that the other side has been giving for all this time. They said, in fact, I think Carlson said, you've been seeing it on an endless loop for the last 2 years of nothing but violence at the Capitol. And his video pretty much shows no violence at the Capitol. It's just people walking around like Boy Scouts on a tour of the Capitol. Is there any way in this free marketplace of ideas for the public to really get the kind of information that will help them make decisions about what really happened?
Well, the first thing I want to see, the video that Carlson released on Monday night, if you speed it up just a little and stick the Yakety Sax song on it, it could be straight out of Benny Hill. You could totally run that. It is that innocuous. Just speed it up 15%. Play the music. It'll be funny. Not that what happened on or after January 6th is anything to laugh about, but some of it is really laughable, if you follow my meaning. The same people who claim that a guy dressed as a shaman was leading an insurrection, even though nobody was armed with anything more deadly than a selfie stick. The same people who claim that as an insurrection say about our AR-15s that, well, you're going to need more than that to take on the federal government. You're going to need an F-15. That's what Joe Biden said. So let us know which it is. The whole point of having rule of law, of having a constitutional order, and the whole reason we say ignorance of the law is no excuse is that the law is knowable in advance, that you can say this act is not an insurrection, but this act is. So just let us know what the rule is and make it one rule for everybody. And I think it's pretty clear, especially if you'll watch my segment this week, that there is not one rule for everybody, that people are being persecuted because it is politically convenient for the swamp to pretend that the protest and the small riot that coincided with it were somehow an insurrection to overthrow the United States government. Again, I can't laugh, but it's laughable.
You know, sometimes I think that that we voluntarily, there's this old saying that you have to have a willing suspension of disbelief in order to enjoy a movie. You've got to kind of pretend that the wild things that are happening on the screen could actually happen. I think that there's kind of a willing suspension of our own logical faculties when it comes to watching news or commentary. And if it were in any other setting, you'd go, no, wait a minute. But because you are primed to say, you know what, I'm sick of people attacking my party, my side of the aisle, my candidate, whatever you perceive that to be, that the first time you see a morsel of evidence that contradicts the narrative, then you immediately go completely to the other end. And the way, frankly, that Tucker Carlson presented this video, at least in the first night's airing, I know he's going to roll out several packages of this, but it just came across as he was basically trying to, in fact, he openly said, you've been lied to. But then it was almost like none of the window breaking things happened. No police officers were really injured. Nothing, barricades were not knocked down. People did not barge through, police lines, as if nothing negative had happened. And folks, big, sloppy crowd events like this that take place over hours and hours have a lot of stuff going on. And if you go through the video of any event like this, I mean, you could have looked at the Promise Keepers rally on the Washington, D.C. Mall years ago, and I'm sure you could have found some video that you could have zoomed in on and said, see what terrible people these guys are? Look at this guy. He didn't even, close the door on the porta potty after he was done or before he was doing it. like you could select video to tell any story you want. Now, that said, I'm glad that Speaker McCarthy has finally released this video. I think it should have come out a lot sooner. I think it should have been made widely available, not just given as an exclusive. After all, this is, in a sense, government property, so it shouldn't be within the power of one political actor to say, I'm going to give my handpicked guy at my, network, the network that's most favorable to me, I'm going to give that to him and give him an exclusive. This should have been distributed widely, should have been made available on public servers for that matter. We should be able to go through it.
Agreed.
Carlson did say that he had everything before they put it on the air. He had the Capitol Police review it to make sure that there were no security threats contained in it. And he said there was one scene where they had to blur out something about a door. And that's the only thing. He said, you won't even notice it in the video, but we felt that that was important because it was showing something that would have possibly been a security breach. So in any case, I'm not really criticizing. Yeah, that could be it. But what I'm saying is the same thing I said last week, frankly. Don't get sucked in. You see 5 minutes of video on Tucker Carlson, and that has credibility. If you see 5 minutes of video on, what's that woman who looks like a man on MSNBC? Rachel Maddow. You see 5 minutes of video on her show, and that has zero credibility. And what I'm saying is we need to see it all. We need to check it all out. And we also need to acknowledge that we're not going to be able to always draw conclusions based on things that we think we see. You're watching a silent video with, in many cases, where people are just walking around. You don't really know what's going on there, but you can acknowledge and say, hey, look, there's a lot of times when people seem to be conducting themselves civilly, walking through a building that they were not supposed to be in. They probably didn't go through the magnetometers to get in there like you normally would have to do for a tour of the Capitol building. They didn't go through the normal security checks. They may have come in through a door or window that somebody else busted out, no matter how civilly they paraded in there. So there were a lot of people there kind of innocuously acting as tourists who shouldn't have been in the building. And then there were some people there who were acting violent and hurting people and breaking things. And I don't think you need to say, well, because there were decent people walking around taking selfies in front of statues, that nullifies all of the violent things or the breaking things part of it. Both happened. It all happened. And let's not be naive or, just kind of self-justifying by saying, well, see, this is a complete lie. There are lies, but it's not all a lie. When you see the video of a guy who's stolen a police riot shield and is smashing a window out, maybe he's a member of some Democratic progressive group, but he is smashing the window out. We need to ask more questions. He may be one of us, and he got carried away and thought that he was doing a good thing. In any case, just as more video comes out, watch it, see what's going on, but you need to kind of tune yourself to act like a jury would and say, okay, now what do I know is actually happening here? And what do I think is happening here? And how does that fit in with the context of everything else that I know or think? And how does it fit in the context of things that I don't know? And that's the way a rational person deals with life. He acknowledges the shortcomings. He acknowledges his finite nature and his inability to gather all facts. And you can make fair judgments based on limited information, but you should not draw final conclusions based on that information if you're an open-minded, thinking person who still has great values, which you do. So I'm sure you'll agree with me. For Stephen Green and Zoe Rachel, sitting in for Bill Whittle this week, I'm Scott Ott. Thanks to the members at BillWhittle.com for making Right Angle possible.